Paul's epistle to the Ephesians is considered one of his prison epistles, which was written around the early 60s AD. The provenance of the epistle has historically been identified as Rome, where Paul was imprisoned awaiting his trial before Caesar, which is noted in Acts 28. Within Ephesians, Paul in fact refers to himself as a prisoner for Christ Jesus on behalf of you Gentiles. He also refers to himself as a prisoner for the Lord and an ambassador in chains. Ephesians is classic Pauline literature in both structure and literary characteristics, such as his salutation, a thanksgiving to God, doctrinal explanation, exhortation, and a conclusion, all of which are similar in general to Paul's other epistles. In addition, however, Paul also uses autobiography, for example in chapter 3 to explain his personal call to the taking the gospel to the Gentiles, and he uses what's called his characteristic paraenetic style specifically in chapters 4 through 6 for exhortation. In the final chapter of Ephesians, Paul skillfully uses metaphor to explain the spiritual battle of the Christian. He says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil." The home of the Ephesian Christians, ancient Ephesus, at the time of Paul's writing had an estimated population at over 300,000 people, and it was home to the famous temple of Artemis. Ephesus was located on the west coast of Asia near the mouth of the Caistar River. So due to its position between two continents, Ephesus benefited financially as a trade route. As well, it was an attractional draw of pagan worship at the Temple of Artemis. Wealth and commerce were essentially connected to the pagan religion. In fact, most notably, the business was tied to the Temple of Artemis. So pagan worship and the occult were part of the broader Ephesian culture, and likely was the basis for such admonitions by Paul that the Ephesian Christians remained strong in the midst of spiritual warfare. For example, Paul wrote, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." While every word of the Bible is worthy of our study, Paul's epistle to the Ephesians is especially relevant to our world today. The theme that God has sovereignly orchestrated the redemption of the church through the work of Jesus Christ. Every Christian needs to understand this, as well as the theme that through the work of Jesus Christ, God has enabled the church to faithfully obey Him.